everyone, welcome to the webinar for Agile Transformation. This is the part 1 of the 3-part series. Our speaker today is Mr. Jay Singha. Jay has over 24 years of vast experience in IT in all different domains. He is a top-notch Agile transformation coach and a trainer. Jay has authored several books which are available on Amazon, including the books on Scrum and solving problems using the Agile way. So over on to Jay to start this webinar. If you have any questions, please type it in the chat box and they will be addressed.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Jay Singha. I'm your presenter for this session. This is a 3-part series, and today we'll be covering the first part of Agile transformation. If you have any question, please feel free to write your question in the session here, in the chat session. So let's get started. Again, as Sanjay explained, I am an Agile enterprise transformation and coach and trainer, and I've also authored various books that are available at Amazon. Some of them are Future of Scrums, Solving Problems the Agile Way. Can you guys hear? And also I conduct various training sessions for Agilians and some of our clients. Today, in Agile Transformation, part 1 of the 3-part webinar series, we'll look at various learning objectives. The aim is for the participants to get an initial understanding of Agile, what is Agile, and so forth. At the end of this webinar, the participants will be able to understand and define what Agile is. We'll also look at it from that perspective of defining Agile from Agile Manifesto and its 12 supporting principles. We'll also look at and explain the benefits from those principles that support Agile Manifesto. So each principle we'll be visiting in detail, so you should be able to explain it after this webinar session. The participants will be able to list at least 2 of the Agile frameworks or methodologies. Participants will also be able to differentiate between a framework and a methodology. What is a framework and what's a methodology? The participants will be able to compare the waterfall method from Agile mindset. And that is to say, the traditional way of development, as Anju mentioned, that currently the way we see the world, it's broken, the way we work. And to be able to keep pace, we have to change the ways we work to be able to keep pace with the changes and the technology as it's advancing in the marketplace. People have high demands in today's age. They have fast-paced life, and so the technology, the mindset, everything is keeping pace, but we are continuing to develop with the traditional ways. So we'll look at those and how we can transform to a faster, way of delivering value with greater agility. We'll discuss the benefits of software development using Agile frameworks and methodologies, and also compare it with the traditional approach. In addition, the participants would be able to list some of the characteristics of Scrum framework and XP methodology and their practices. This would further be elaborated in part 2 of the webinar. So let's look at what is Agile. PMI defines Agile as a philosophy that uses organization models based on people, collaboration, and shared values. So again, Agile is a mindset, it's a philosophy, and it is not the model. It is actually using the organization models, and these models are actually based on people who work in the organizations. These people, individuals, they interact and collaborate, and then their shared values. What Agile uses rolling wave planning. So again, these are the factors Agile uses as philosophy. Rolling wave planning is a way of planning, you know, in a series like iterations and so forth. It is iterative and incremental delivery. So again, it uses iterations, and in each iteration, it delivers an increment of a product, which means that the product has new functionality added on to the previous iteration product delivery. So it increments. It's called incremental delivery at the end of every iteration. Rapid and flexible response to change. So how do you respond to change rapidly as the market is changing? So again, this is also achieved through shorter delivery cycles, through iterations, through sprints, and so forth. In Kanban, it's done through cadence. And open communication between teams, stakeholders, and customers. Now, the traditional way was everything has to go through a hierarchical chain. It goes up and down, and someone high up in the chain of command is collaborating. But in Agile, it's all about collaborating proactively, directly with the customers. Agile frameworks and methodologies, they promote working directly with the customers, ensuring that there is no boundary that's hindering the communication, getting stakeholders' feedback through different reviews at the end of the iterations, and always seeking to deliver the highest value. So customer feedback is sought early and continuously throughout the project on an Agile project. So there are many approaches to Agile that adhere to these tenets, and PMI is listing some of the framework and methodologies here, such as Scrum, Extreme Programming, Lean, Kanban, and test-driven development. Although Agile principles have their roots in the software and IT industries, Agile adoption is growing and expanding in a wide range of industries, including healthcare, marketing, and manufacturing. So this is to say that even though Agile started as a strong footprint in software development, now it is expanding to other domains. Even healthcare, it's actually being used even at education level. So we use many of our courses, programs that we run. They are being used. They are using Scrum and XP and heavily using Kanban. So again, that Agile is very useful in delivering early product to the customer and then getting the feedback, so that we can quickly adapt to the change and then make sure that whatever we are delivering is of optimal value. Our definition of Agile is Agile in software development is a mindset of developing product using time boxes with PDA cycle to deliver the optimum value to customer at the end of each short iteration and adapt to feedback for continuous improvement. Kaizen of product, process, and people instead of delivering entire value after a long period of development. So this is identifying that, again, in software development. So our definition is specifically identifying Agile in software development. In software development industry is a mindset, and where we are delivering product using time boxes. And you would say, what is this PDCA cycle? PDCA cycle is also known as Deming cycle, and it's basically 4 set of steps that you continuously rinse and repeat. Plan is for P, do, check, act. Plan, do, check, act. Deming popularized it when working for Toyota production systems, and it has also been used in regular project management. So when you look at PMI PMBOK guide, and it talks about plan, do, check, act, and they are extensively using. So you would say, wait a minute, it's part of the traditional software development or traditional project management. So how is it different in Agile? Well, in Agile, it is done to be able to deliver value in shorter iterations. General project from PMI perspective had been for multiple years, large projects. That's the mindset when you look at PMBOK guide. But in Agile, it is in shorter duration. Yes, the project could run for a long time, but the delivery is made in, like for example, in Scrum, it's a month or less, a sprint size is. And at the end of sprint, a working software is delivered to the customer, where the value is immediately recognized by the customer, and it is done so that not just value is recognized, the customer uses, the end user uses the product and provides a quick feedback. Thus, this quick feedback enables the team to realign themselves with the market changes, and we'll delve at depth into what that means in agile versus traditional project management. Agile is not a methodology. You need to understand that it's a philosophy, it's a mindset. It is not prescriptive, not something that you can directly, start applying as is. It is actually a mindset. So, you have to understand with that perspective. Now, there are various methodologies and frameworks that are agile, like Scrum. Scrum framework, for some reason, people think that it's fairly new, while it has been there since 1993. So it has been over 2 decades that Scrum has been practiced in the marketplace and the software industry. Extreme programming is a methodology. It borrowed a lot of aspects from Scrum with different nomenclatures like iteration instead of sprint, daily stand-ups, game as is, and so forth. Kanban does not use time boxes. It is based on cadence and focuses on minimum viable product. Crystal, DSDM, and feature-driven development are the frameworks and methodologies. So why go agile? That's a normal question. Once again, why do we change the way we are doing things? Waterfall has been used all the way till 1985. Apparently, after 1985, nobody really used waterfall model because they started going to iterative, prototyping, rational, unified process-based methodologies. So again, there were different other frameworks. Now you say, wait a minute. So again, instead of years, the releases were being made in a quarterly basis, 3 to 6 months. That was the shorter release cycles. And in waterfall, there was phase kits, right? Means again, there were requirements documents being received from the customer. They were analyzed during requirement analysis. Then the set of documents were thrown over to the design team, and the design team would work on the design. And everything was top priority. Everything has to be completed at once. And as soon as the design team finished their design, they would throw it over to the development team, and development team would go about developing the product. And again, nothing was top priority, low priority. There was no, ranking between the various items in the requirement or analysis designs. Everything had to be delivered. And once development was done, they pushed everything to testing. And the testing team would go about testing the application, identifying different bugs, and then following up with the test development team, and then working through the bugs. And as soon as it meets the criteria for exit criteria for the release, the testing team would notify the deployment, and then it was pushed. The application would be pushed to the deployment, and then afterwards, once it's in production, it would go through the regular maintenance cycle. Even the enhancements used to be big releases, for a year or so. So again, that used to be waterfall, the traditional way of doing things in the old times. And then after 1985, different approaches started coming in, like iterative development, prototyping, rational unified process was a very extensive, rational promoted methodology. And IBM Rational kind of like used it pretty extensively. One of the things was it was very descriptive, it was too process oriented, and it assumed that the organizations have the maturity in people, processes, and products to be able to handle it. IBM Rational also had a whole suite of products to support its methodology. It did have shorter release cycles, yes. It did have 3 to 6 months release cycles, yet at the same time, there was a big lag. Why? Because market changes. Market had been revamping. Software development market has been changing, and the market demands have been getting revamped every 3 to 6 months. So this meant that every time a product would come out after 3 to 6 months, its value would have drastically reduced, and it was hard to align itself to the customer needs. So Agile paved the way, right? Agile mindset, it has its roots in from Toyota manufacturing system, and Agile frameworks and methodologies, they came in and provided value-driven deliveries. They provided uh, product delivery in iterations, and there was incremental product. Incremental product, like I have already explained, is all the functionality from the previous iteration and new added functionality added on to the product in this iteration. So it's just incrementing, increasing, adding value to the previously provided value. How does that help? Because it's optimizing ROI. It's helping delivering customer to the customer the value quickly. The product is in the hands of the customer. The customer can start playing with it. The end user can start using the product, and then they provide quick feedback. As soon as you get the feedback, then you can realign. So the development team is able to realign themselves with the customer needs, and this leads to overall success. So suddenly the paradigm shift occurs in Agile, where initially the paradigm shift was more into phase gates, more into a development shop. Now the paradigm shift has, and the focus has shifted from development to the customer, the stakeholders, and they are the main focus in Agile. And it has been gaining popularity since Scrum had been introduced. Again, since 1993, Scrum was introduced at Excel by Jeff Sutherland, and in 1995, Jeff Sutherland and Ken Schwaber, they presented a paper at Uppsala on Scrum product development. So that made it very popular, and for last 2 decades, it has been one of the leading Agile framework. But it has been limited only to small teams. So that's another aspect which we'll delve next week on those. So let's look at value-driven comparison. So value in case of waterfall is realized at the end of the product release, which is after years. So this is what is showing. There's nothing. There's analysis, design, development, testing, all that is going on. And when the product is released, then it's anticipating that the value is realized. Yet at the same time, a lot has happened between the start, the concept phase, to the delivery phase, and the real value would have drastically reduced. I can give you an example of iPhone, right? When iPhone came out, it was $600 a piece, only available through AT&T and Apple, and now it's available by so many other carriers, and the features are so much cheaper and so much more powerful today than it used to be back in the time. So waterfall would not have worked, because at the end, if the iPhone was released 6 years from the day of conception, then it would have been much lower value. Many of the apps that were being used 6 years back are not even there on current iPhones. The apps are much more powerful. The processors, the hardware is much more upgraded, and the memory and so forth. So again, so many factors, they affect a product, and the value realized in the market drastically reduces if there is a gap, a large gap between the demand and from the concept to delivery phase. Iterative development seemed to answer some of those issues. They were doing 3 to 6 months release. This allowed some level of feedback to be incorporated. However, as the market continued to change drastically, even that was not keeping pace with the change in the market. So agile development provides highest value delivery, because in case of Scrum, sprint is a month or less duration, and at the end of the sprint, at the beginning of the sprint, you do the planning, you have the concept phase, and then at the end of the sprint, you give out the incremental product to the customer, and immediately the customer is able to realize value. So the realization of value is early in case of Scrum, any other agile framework and methodology, and at the same time, you're realigning with the market need. As soon as the customer, the end user, is able to use the product, they are able to give you feedback. What do they like? What do they not like? What would they like to have in the next iteration? And that is very useful information for the development, for the development shop to quickly realign and give out the highest value, the optimal value product to the customer. So Agile Manifesto is what paved the way to kind of like help people understand what kind of frameworks and methodologies that would meet Agile can be called Agile. So in 2001 February in Snowberg, Utah, 17 leaders in software development domain, they met, and they discuss that what should be the criteria for a framework or methodology to be agile. And this is what they came up with, Agile Manifesto and its 12 supporting principles. So here we cover Agile Manifesto. And this is not some management higher up thinking of a hypothesis. These are real people working in the field and telling them from their experiences, as it starts with the very sentence. We are uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others do it. So this is identifying that they really did it themselves and helped other organizations, other enterprises, and other teams do it repeatedly. So this is a proven way. Through this work, they have come to value, and here they are identifying the values, and there are 4 value comparisons. Individuals and interactions over process and tools. Of course, in the traditional way as well as even in iterative, process and tools have been given a lot of weightage. And now with Agile, they are shifting that focus. They are saying individuals and interactions. Individuals are the people who are developing the product. They are building the product. They are giving it out to the customer. The customer is important because he has valuable feedback that we want to take into consideration. So their interactions is very important. So all the development shop folks and all the customers, the stakeholders, they play a major part, and they are valued more than the process and tools. Of course, process and tools, they help us in delivering the product, but on its own, the process and tools do not build the product. It is the individuals who do that, and the market demand has to be aligned proactively. The second value comparison shows working software over comprehensive documentation. We all know in our traditional project management how much documentation is produced just to prove how successful a project is. So again, the shift has occurred from comprehensive documentation to working software, because it is only the working software that delivers value at the end of it. So the customer is able to use the software. The end user who uses the software is able to meet their identified need, and hence they are able to derive value out of that. Comprehensive documentation is good, not to say that users guides, administrators guides, the maintenance and support manuals, they are not useful. Yet at the same time, without a working software, they are just nothing but paper with a lot of ink on it. So it's very important to understand that working software is what really is delivering the value. And the third value comparison is customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So again, in traditional ways, and even today, means contracts are important because they keep the 2 parties legally bound to their promises, what they have promised to each other, to keep that, and it's a good criteria to keep the business going. And customer collaboration, however, is given more value because we want to be able to realign our effort to give optimal value delivery to the customer. So again, we want the customer to collaborate with us, and in Agile, it is given high importance. Means Scrum and XP, they talk about co-located customer. They talk about on-site customers, so that there is daily collaboration happening with the customer. And the development team can approach the customer during the development phase, during the execution phase, and understand what all needs to be done, understand what is it that's of value to the customer, understand what is it that the need of the customer that they need to meet. The fourth value comparison talks about responding to change over following a plan. Again, Agile is all about responding to change. We want to stay aligned with the market changes. We want to stay aligned with, hey, is this something of value? Is this something that the user needs out there? Yeah, even at this moment, of course, we understand that 6 months back there was a need, but is there still a need? Coming with the smartphones changed the user's perspective as to what they need, on a phone. It's not just to make calls. They need so many applications, calendars. They need to be able to do texting. They're able to do internet. It is not a phone features. That's all. It's again, with smartphones, so much has happened. So ability to respond to change over following a plan. Of course, planning is important. Planning is important. Yet at the same time, extensive planning. We all know about the cone of uncertainty. At the beginning of a project, a large project, it can have 400% variation on either side, anywhere from 25% to 400%. That's the estimation gap. To be able to have a plan but not do extensive planning, to do proactive planning just to be able to deliver optimal value, and then keep the iteration short so that we can respond to the change quickly. So responding to change over following a plan is paramount. They clearly stated that is, where there is value in the items on the right, we value the items on the left more. And there are 17 leaders in the software development industry. They are listed just below the manifesto. So again, Kent Beck and Ron Jeffries, Ward Cunningham, Robert C. Martin, they started extreme programming practices and methodology. Mike Beadle started with Scrum, helping Ken and Jeff Sutherland, Ken Schwaber and Jeff Sutherland, they are the co-creators of Scrum. John Kern started feature-driven development. Jim Highsmith started ASD. Aztec Coburn started Crystal. Ari Van Verenkum, DSDM. So again, a lot of leaders from different Agile frameworks and methodologies, they participated in this session in 2001 and came up with Agile Manifesto. They also gave 12 supporting principles. So before we go into the principles, let's look at the significance of Agile Manifesto. Agile Manifesto provides value comparison. We looked at the 4 value compares of value comparison, and there is a paradigm shift right there. They are going away from the traditional way of thinking and to a way where individuals are more important than process and tools. They're really looking at good interactions like customer collaboration, then contract negotiation. They're looking at working software being the success criteria. They are looking at ability to change quickly. So again, those 4 value comparisons provide quite a good guideline as manifesto. And then it does not compare the lower value items to be of no value. So what is to say about contract? Of course, contracts are important for any legal entity to do business. Yet at the same time, the shift of focus is there. So not that the contract is of no value, it does have value. Yet at the same time, customer collaboration is of higher value. So that's the focus shift. All Agile frameworks and methods, they must support Agile Manifesto and its principles. So that became a guideline for the frameworks and methods. And as we see, we have so many other Agile frameworks and methods coming up. We have SAFe, we have LESS, we have Scrum-bound, we have Scrum XP, and so many other hybrids. And of course, all these frameworks are looking from developer perspective, yet the focus is on the customer. What is it that the customer needs? So they're written with the developer in mind, so they're the receiving end. Yet the focus is how do we provide maximum value to the customer, the optimal value. Principles behind the Agile Manifesto. So our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. So here again, the very first principle identifies what's the highest priority. Of course, it is to satisfy the customer, but how do you satisfy the customer? You want to satisfy the customer for delivery of valuable software, but how's that valuable software delivered? It is delivered early. Why is it early? So that we can realign ourselves with the market changes. And not just being early, it is continuous, so that they are expecting it. There is a set expectation that they are using it extensively to provide feedback and keeping us realigned with the market changes. Second principle talks about welcoming changing requirements even late in development. How can you welcome changing requirements even late in development? Only when you are releasing early and then seeking that feedback and then allowing those changes to be incorporated as you go for planning for the next iteration. Agile processes harness change for the customer's competitive advantage. They tend, the Agile processes, the whole mindset is around making sure that the changes are incorporated so that they are delivering optimal value for the customer. The customer is able to fulfill the end user needs. So third principle talks about deliver working software frequently from a couple of weeks to a couple of months with a preference to the shorter time scale. As you can see, all these principles are so correlated, they're codependent or interdependent in this case. So the delivery of working software, of course, has to be done. And if you have to err, you have to err on the lower side, like XP. Couple of weeks to couple of months. XP sometimes extreme programming teams, they tend to deliver every week. So the iteration length is 1 week. So if you have to err, you are on the lower side because you are more frequent and you are able to get more feedback from the customer and realign yourself in a more proactive manner. Uh, Principle 4, business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project. This identifies that there is no boundary, there is no wall between the business people and the developers, that they must work together. The developers during the iteration should be able to approach the customer and ask about various aspects. If they do not understand what the customer needs are, then they should be able to easily, have an access channel to the business people to work with them throughout the project. So again, this is at a daily basis. Of course, Safe, Less, and other frameworks which talk at program level and portfolio level, they identify that these need some tweaking to scale, working daily throughout the project. This particular aspect is, again, scaled within the very principle. Principle 5 talks about build projects around motivated individuals, give them the environment and support they need, and trust them to get the job done. Now, Driven, the book by Daniel H. Pink, talks about motivation. In rudimentary work where not much cognitive skills are required, money is a motivator, no doubt about that. However, as soon as someone requires a little bit of technical, little bit of analytical, little bit of cognitive skills, that's not, just how long you jump and so forth, then money is not a motivator. It's actually a demotivator. So there the focus is on keeping motivated individuals. And what motivates individuals? It's about purpose, it's about mastery, it's about autonomy. So it is important for the leaders to look at projects that are built around motivated individuals, give them that environment where they can seek out the purpose, they can master their skills, at the same time do it in a self-organized manner. So again, that's autonomy. And giving them the environment and support, and then just trust them to get the job done. There is no need to be, micromanagement. There is no need to have managers all over the developers and testers to see how they're working day to day. Let them go about, figure out how they want to work, and just trust them to get the job done. Principle 6 talks about the most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within a development team is face-to-face conversation. Now, this is talking about effectiveness and efficiency in communication, which is paramount because that is taking out waste. One of the major waste in software industry has been the communication between the developers and the customers. So again, it is making sure that there is a face-to-face conversation. They are really hearing from the horse's mouth and really knowing what is needed and figuring it out themselves in a self-organizing manner. How do they provide that value to the customer, that work to the customer? Principles behind the Agile Manifesto. Seventh principle talks about working software is the primary measure of progress. Of course, you have some documentation being developed, a lot of lines of codes and all that, but that's not the measure of progress. It's only the working software, which is in the hand of the customer. When it's saying working software, it has to be in the hand of the customer. It cannot be on a staging environment that nobody knows about. It cannot be on an internal server that nobody knows about. It has to be in the hand of the customer so that they can, use the product, use the software, and give you a quick, good feedback on, substantial feedback on whether they like it, what is it that they like, and how you can improve it, and how it meets their purpose. Purpose for use, purpose for fitness. Again, they have to be fit for use, and fit for purpose has to be taken into account, whether they are able to use it successfully or not. Principle 8 talks about agile processes promote sustainable development. Now that's the human approach. The sponsors, developers, and users should be able to maintain a constant pace indefinitely. So this is talking about how can we continue to work in a manner that is sustainable, that we can do day by day without burning out, without going overboard. And not just the developers, the sponsors, the development team, and then the users, the end users, they should be able to work together at a constant pace. And this constant pace should be set in such a manner that it can go on indefinitely. So that's the human approach in this principle. Uh, Principle 9 talks about continuous attention to technical excellence, and good design enhances agility. So again, this particular principle is focusing on the context. What's the context? How are we keeping ourselves continuously engaged? And it is continuous attention that one maintains that context to be able to excel and design. And how does that design help us? So it helps us being agile. What does agile mean in this case? Agile is all about being able to change, being able to quickly respond to the change, and being able to realign ourselves with the user needs to deliver optimal value. So that continuous attention, maintaining that context, and then continuing to provide that enables agility. Refactoring is another way of looking at agility. Means every time a developer finishes the code, they make sure that it's red, green, clean. Red is test in development talks about red, green, clean, where the tests are written first, and when the developers run their module against the test, since there is no code, of course, it all fails. That's red state. And then once the developer writes just enough code that meets those test cases, all the tests start passing, right? As the tests start passing, it starts to go to green. So red and green. And then the next step is, after all the tests have passed, they clean, they refactor the code. And during refactoring, the behavior of the code doesn't change, but it becomes more maintainable. It is filled with, well indented, good nomenclature. The coding guidelines are maintained, and so forth. So this is all about being agile, being able to support and maintain the software. Principle 10 talks about simplicity. The art of maximizing the amount of work not done is essential. See, the focus here is maximizing the amount of work not done. So it is taking out all the waste from the system, all the waste from the process, all the waste in the work that's involved in building the product. So this is simplicity. Simplicity is essential, and is focusing on waste aspect. So any work that does not deliver value need not be done. And test-driven development, like I just discussed, helps with that, because the developer, after the tests are written, then only the developer writes the code. And the code is written just minimally to meet the requirement of the test, just to pass the test. So that's the focus of developer. Developer is not on their own doing any gold plating. So it's avoiding gold plating because it's unnecessary work that does not deliver value. Principle 8 talks about the best architectures requirements and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. So self-organizing teams is all about autonomy. The team identifies with the customer, understands what needs to be done, and then it works on the architecture, it works on the requirements and the designs, and they best appear when the team is able to decide how they are going to work, how they are going to build the product. Principle 12 talks about, at regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become effective, then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. So this is all about inspect and adapt cycle, like in Scrum. After some time, the team stops what they are doing, and they start looking at what is it that they started to go based on the sprint goal, and have they achieved that goal or not, and they seek feedback. And at the same time, they're looking at retrospective, main focus on retrospective, where they look at how well are we doing, how good are the processes that we are using, are there any impediments, how are we handling our impediments, how can we go faster, how can we deliver early, and so forth, how can we deliver optimal value, how can we maximize from our current way of working. So that's about the tunes and adjusting its behavior accordingly. Now let's look at the significance of the Agile principles. We looked at each principle, I gave you some examples. Now let's look at some cause effect. So the very first principle, where your cause is early and continuous delivery of value, which is working software, right? So the valuable software is delivered early and continuously, and what does it lead to? It leads to satisfied customer. We'll have return customer coming back to us, asking for more, and that's desirable because that means more business. More business means constant engagement. Principle 2 talks about welcoming change even late in development. So when you welcome change, the customer is able to derive maximum value, the optimal value from what is being delivered. The incremental product that the customer has in his hand has exactly what he needs to fulfill and achieve his target. So that's giving the customer a competitive advantage. We are not delivering to customer what was just promised at the beginning and is of no use at the time it is being delivered. So again, we are keeping that risk cycle short. There is also a risk involved within iteration, but that cycle is really short compared to iterative, which was 3 to 6 months long cycle, or waterfall method based development, which is in years. Principle 3 talks about cause and effect of delivering early and frequently. Now this is talking about keeping the iteration cycle short, or the cadence short enough, and the effect is working software is in the hand of the customer. So, this is also focusing on, because that's the measure of progress. Fourth, business people and developers must work together daily. What does that lead to? This causes daily collaboration and value optimization. So those are the effects of daily communication between business people and developers. Fifth principle talks about giving support and environment to motivated individuals. What does that lead to? It removes micromanagement, but also it gives them autonomy, and then you can just trust them to get the work done. You're not worried about it, whether they will be able to deliver or not. You have let it completely be up to them. This is also keeping them motivated, driven towards that purpose of meeting their goal for the sprint, for the iteration. Yet at the same time, being able to master their skills, being able to attain the autonomy, being able to self-organize their work. Sixth principle talks about face-to-face conversation. Why? Because it's most efficient, most effective, simply stated. Measure of progress. What's the measure of progress? Agile clearly states it's working software, not the comprehensive documentation. It is working software. It is the software that's in the hand of the customer that they are using daily. Constant pace. Indefinitely. What does that lead? It leads to sustainable development. It is a human approach to software development. Talk about technical excellence and good design. It enhances agility. Maximizing the amount of work not done. This is all about waste. Remove any waste in the system. Remove any roadblock that's hampering or slowing down the progress. And that simplicity enables faster delivery, that enables better maintainability, that delivers optimal value. So those are the effects. Self-organizing teams. That's keeping everyone motivated, self-organizing teams. And what do self-motivated people they deliver? They deliver best architectures, they deliver the best requirements there are and best designs. So those are the great deliverables from our self-organizing teams. And 12 talks about retrospection. Retrospection, how do we make our delivery more effective? How do we make our process more effective? How do we collaborate better? How do we change our behavior to be more effective? And it's all about improving and going as fast as you can. So sky's the limit, yet at the sustainable pace. Moving onward, we are going to look at some of the Agile framework and methodologies. And of course, the most popular framework today is Scrum. It's been there for over 2 decades. And Scrum, as explained in the Scrum Guide, is defined as a framework within which people can address complex adaptive problems while productively and creatively delivering products of the highest possible value. So it's important to understand that this is a framework for complex adaptive problems. It is not a framework for simple problems. If there are simple problems, you can directly go about doing regular traditional waterfall method, no problem at all. You don't have to come to complex adaptive. However, software development is a complex domain. So, and it is adaptive in nature. So again, in software development, Scrum framework works very well. It is being also used in healthcare. It is also being used in the industries like building, construction, schools, I already talked about. So there are various other industries Scrum frameworks now being used at, not just software development. So what is Scrum framework all about? So let's look at 3 elements in Scrum framework. Of course, there is a aspect of committed versus involved. There's a joke where a hen comes to the pig and says, "Hey pig, I was thinking we should open a restaurant." And pig says, "What will we call it?" Hen says, "How about ham and eggs?" Pig says, "No thanks, I would be committed while you would only be involved, because the pig would be slaughtered while hen only contributes the eggs." So Scrum team is committed. The team really working on Scrum. So that's the team, and we'll look at the various roles within the team. And all of the members, all of the stakeholders are involved while the Scrum team itself is committed. There are three pillars to Scrum. Transparency. Transparency is to make sure everything is visible to everyone so that people can see the progress, people can assess what's going on, and they can realign themselves. Inspection is the ability to not just making something transparent is important. It's important to be able to inspect and adapt, right? To be able to stop at a point and see how we are doing and then improve it. So that's all about inspect and adapt cycle, and it's also referred to as sprint. Inspection enables people to look at what is made visible and then assess and analyze it. And once they assess and analyze it, they find better ways of doing things or getting higher value. And that's all about adaptation, the third pillar. Adapt to ensure that the value is optimized. Adapt to ensure that you are well aligned with the customer needs. 5 values in Scrum are focus. Everyone needs to be context driven, understand what the sprint goal is, and keep the focus on that. Customer is paramount here. So again, in Agile, customer is the main focus and what their needs are. It takes courage. Courage is the second value. To be able to make yourself transparent to others, to be able to open up. So again, openness is also part of being courageous, being committed, at least for the sprints. Again, the team is committed. The team is driven that internal changes are avoided. And respect. Respect is all about no finger pointing, no blame game. You're basically looking at working together, collaborating with each other, having a positive interactions while giving, developing the product. And of course, if there were mistakes in the past, that is to help you learn how to proceed in the future. And if there were great things in the past and you want to continue doing them and even improve, see how you can do better. Scrum, there are 3 basic elements: Scrum team, Scrum events, and Scrum artifacts. And we'll be looking into these in the next slide. Scrum framework. Basically, there are 3 roles in Scrum: Scrum Master, Scrum Product Owner, and then the development team. So Scrum Master is someone who manages the Scrum process, makes sure that he or she makes sure that the Scrum process is well understood in the team, and then facilitates various Scrum events, is a servant leader, protects the team from outside interference, reduces information draft, ensures that there is a safe environment for the team to work in. So that's Scrum team, Scrum Master. And then the Product Owner is a person who is representing the customer and is responsible to optimizing return on investment, optimizing the value that is to be delivered. Product owner owns the product backlog. Product backlog is just a list of things that the customer needs, and they are prioritized. The backlog is prioritized based on values. Again, value-based prioritization is done, and the items are picked up from the top of the product backlog to be done. Product owner also makes sure that decisions are made for the product. So again, they are empowered to make decisions, and it's only the product owner who can cancel a sprint. If the sprint does not satisfy the sprint goal anymore, the sprint goal has become obsolete, then the product owner can cancel the sprint. The third member to the Scrum team is the development team. What does the development team do? Of course, they are the people, they are the individuals who build the product increment. It is in the done form, so that, of course, there's a definition of done aspect that we'll discuss later. Each member in the development team is a developer. The development team says generalized specialist is also cross-functional, yet at the same time they are specialized in their individual areas. So that, what does that mean? Generalized specialist. For example, there's a developer, right? A developer is really thorough in how to do development. He has a really good depth in development, yet at the same time has some level of understanding of what's involved in design and analysis and what's involved in testing. So if there is a need, then they can jump into that domain and help the designers or the analysts and the testers with their tasks. And same way, testers, they're really deep into their own testing. They understand what testing is all about, what quality is all about, and how to test for it, how to measure. And at the same time, they can also, uh, when required, come and help the developers. The different characteristics of Scrum team, again, the development team size is 7 plus minus 2. That's been there since 2009. However, if you do have to err on the lower side, lower end. So in Scrum Guide, Jeff and Ken, they talk about Scrum development team size of 3. So they are erring on the lower side, not on the higher side. So self-organizing teams, again, the teams are self-organizing. They organize their work and they plan out how it is to be done. We talked about cross-functional. They understand what are the members of the team are doing, and they are fully autonomous because they have to deliver product all the way from concept to delivery. So the team is self-sufficient in meeting that demand, in able to get the things done, and they have a shared understanding of what done means. So that's given through definition of done. The team delivers product iteratively and incrementally. So in every sprint, at the end of sprint, an incremental product is delivered to the customer. It's demoed to the customer during sprint review and delivered afterwards. The sprint events. So Scrum events, they're actually time-boxed events in Scrum. The first one is, of course, sprint, which is a time box, no more than a month. So a month or less is the duration for a sprint. Sprint planning occurs in the beginning of the sprint, and for a month-long sprint, it is an 8-hour long time box. Daily stand-up or daily scrum is a 15-minute for the development team, and it occurs every day. Sprint review occurs at the end of the sprint, and for 1 month sprint, it is a 4-hour time box. Sprint retrospective also occurs at the end of the sprint after the sprint review, and is a 3-hour time box for 1 month sprint. Now, what are the characteristics? The characteristics are that they are time box, maximum time allowed. They create opportunity to inspect and adapt. And then there are specific participants in each event, so that we'll discuss in this slide. Scrum time boxes. So sprint, the input to sprint is product backlog. The product owner prepares, and it is a deep product backlog that it brings. And then the output from the sprint is the increment, right? So increment is a product increment that meets the definition of done for each of the work items. No changes are allowed that impacts the sprint goals. Again, sprint goal needs to be managed. So during the sprint backlog is owned by the development team, not the product owner. The product owner only owns the product backlog and can continue to prioritize and realign it to the user needs. Sprint planning is the first planning event in a sprint. Input is product backlog. Output is a sprint goal and a sprint backlog. There are two-part events. The first part is the product owner explains the various backlog items to the development team, and then the team selects various items based on its velocity. Velocity is derived from its past performance. And then the second part is before the beginning of second part, the sprint has started, and the team discusses on how to achieve the sprint goal and the various how to complete those backlog items that they have selected for the sprint. Daily stand-up is a 15-minute time box, occurs every day, and the main participants are the development team. Of course, the product owner and other stakeholders, they can attend it, yet at the same time, they are not the participants. They can only be fly on the wall. Sprint review. Sprint review has participants where the Scrum team demos the product. Actually, it is the product owner who actually demos the product and is being supported by the Scrum development teams. And then the key stakeholders participate, they provide, and the product demo is done to gather feedback from the customer, not just to show that this is what we planned and this is what we have done, what we are done with. It's also gathering feedback from the customer to realign, to optimize the value. And the product owner takes that feedback and makes some drastic changes to product backlog before the next planning session occurs. Acceptance is based on definition of done. So all definition of done is very clearly identified during the sprint planning. So there is no ambiguity in that. After the sprint review, the sprint retrospective, where the participant is the Scrum team. And as you understand, Scrum team includes the product owner, Scrum master, and the development team. And the focus is on continuous improvement. How can we deliver faster? How can we improve the way we are developing? How can we overcome our obstacles? So that's the major focus. The Scrum artifacts. Let's look at Scrum artifacts. 3 major artifacts: product backlog, owned by product owner, it's never complete, and is constantly groomed. And all the high value items are at the top. So again, it is prioritized based on value, with the top most value item at the top and then the value descending, and the backlog items are constantly split, constantly refined, constantly elaborated to make sure that it is complete for the team to understand what is expected so that they can figure out how they can build it. Sprint backlog is output of sprint planning session, of course, and as we discussed before, it is owned by the development team. So the product owner cannot go and make changes to the sprint backlog. Of course, they can propose with the understanding that if they add something to the sprint backlog, a new backlog item that they think is of high value, then they should be open to let the items in the bottom drop off. And it contains items to meet the sprint goals. So the team is focusing and staying motivated with the purpose in mind, and the purpose is to achieve the sprint goal. So that's the vision for a sprint. Increment is the product increment. That's the artifact which represents the working software to be delivered at the end of each sprint. So at this time, let's look at it's already 1 o'clock, and I'll quickly cover XP and Kanban for you guys. Kanban is XP is actually a methodology, not a framework. It's based on values and practices that the teams use. It's done through short iterations of a product, and these short iterations are basically called iterations, and increments of a product are delivered in each. Developed by Ken Beck, Ward Cunningham, Ron Jeffries, and Robert C. Martin. We discussed that earlier. So these are the co-creators of extreme programming. 5 values of XP: courage, communication, simplicity, feedback, and respect. Very much similar to what Scrum has. Courage is right there, feedback, respect is right there. Communication, simplicity, and feedback also align the values to supporting principles of Agile Manifesto. XP roles, similar roles to that of Scrum. You will see customer, which is like a product owner in Scrum. So a customer, and XP talks about on-site customer. They want the customer on-site or located with the team in the same room, possibly. The other role is programmer. This is similar to a developer role in Scrum. So everyone in an XP team is a programmer. And then there's a manager or a coach, which is equivalent to a Scrum Master. In this case, manager and coach goes a little beyond Scrum Master, where they manage other affairs as well for XP teams. XP practices. So there are XP practices as adapted from Ron Jeffries' book on XP practices and his website on xpprogramming.net. You can go and read it elaborated manner. Yet at the same time, these are great practices where the accountability is with the whole team. The customer tests or getting acceptance test driven development is there. There is small releases. The incremental product is released frequently for feedback and providing optimal value early and continuously to the customer. The coding standards followed so that everybody can know how code has been written, and avoids individual ownership, strong individual ownership, because the team ownership is paramount. Collective ownership is paramount, and the development is done at a sustainable pace. Test-driven development we talked about is all about writing the test before you develop the product, peer programming, and refactoring. So again, those are some of the aspects. Now let's look at Kanban board. Kanban board is all about making the flow visible and using pull models. So in this case, you see number 4 here, that represents the WIP limit, work in progress limit. So there can be only 4 items in this design phase based on that limit. Development has 2 as the limit, and test has 2. So let's look at the second backlog item also picked up. So again, it's pulled by the designer it's working on. So again, they have still more capacity available. So third item has been picked up, fourth item has been picked up. Now one has been completed and the developer picks that backlog item and starts working on it. And another one has been completed by designer, so that has been picked up by developer and working on it. Now if the third one tries to come, of course the WIP limit in development is 2, so that's a no. It goes back, and the team recognizes that there is a shortcoming, so maybe a tester can come in to help and helps the developer finish, and the developer finishes and another tester picks it up in test environment, and the developer can accept another backlog item for development from design. So this is to give you an insight. So at the end of this webinar, let's look at our learning objectives. You as a participant are able to understand and define what Agile is. You understand that it's a mindset and a philosophy and not a framework or methodology. It's not prescriptive. You can describe Agile Manifesto and its 12 supporting principles. So we discussed that at length today. You can explain the benefits from the principles supporting the manifesto. Also, you can list at least 2 Agile frameworks or methodologies. You are able to differentiate between what a framework and what a methodology is. You can compare the waterfall method from Agile mindset, and you can discuss the benefits of Agile software development from traditional approach. In addition, you can list some of the characteristics of Scrum and XP practices. Scrum is a framework, so we looked at different elements of those, and we will elaborate those further in the next webinar session. Thank you very much. If there is any question, I'm checking the chat session.
Thank you, Jeff, for helping us understand the intricacies of Agile and comparing it with the way we develop using traditional approaches. No doubt, the way the world works is broken. Our work needs to keep pace with the change, as we know. Change is the only constant. So next week in part 2, we shall take a deep dive into Scrum and XP. Jay, could you share the PDO and SEO details?
Sure. I think the participants are waiting for this. So how do you claim the PDU and SEO? For PMP and PMI SAP, you can claim 1 PDU for this attending this webinar. The details are covered on this page, so you might want to collect that. And PDU claiming is based on strategy, 1 PDU, and the total is 1 PDU. If you have any question, contact the trainings department at the provided email. And for Scrum Alliance, you can use the above provided information to claim 1 SEO. Thank you, everyone. It was actually, the slides are all copyrighted, and right now we've shared it mainly with our clients. So we are going to place it on the YouTube channel, so you can definitely get the slides from the YouTube channel, and that should suffice. Thank you very much.